well, I got Adrien Thomas has joined me for a meeting where we're going to have a discussion on what's going on. I'll let Adrien tell you who he is and why he's an activist and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, my name is Adrien Thomas. I'm from Saskatchewan, Treaty 6. I'm what do you call Cree? My tribe is the Cree, and I don't really consider myself an activist at all. I think I'm more of a truther, if you must. And the thing about where I come from is, like, we were taught about natural law versus, like, man-made law and common law, and same time too, when we talk about such things, we have to try to look at the aspect of spirituality and also soul. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but the more we look at our spirituality and our soul, the Greek terminology of soul is mind, the more we know about ourselves, the more we know about the political ventures of Canada, if that makes sense. But that's who I am in a nutshell. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad to be here. So
that's good.
I guess off to you. Just tell me what you want to. Would you want to know?
so yeah. So you're Cree. You're based in outside of Edmonton.
Yep.
There's lots of people.
I'm based in Edmonton. I'm based in Edmonton. Yeah.
So there's a lot of people in the Edmonton area that would probably want to connect with you. You must have a pretty good following on your video channels.
Somewhat. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I've been posting has been taken down. I don't know what's going on, but whenever I post any kind of video, they'll have it up for maybe about a week, and then it just gets deleted because somewhere along the line, maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's news media, they just take it off. Probably because they can't really argue against the fact of, where we're at. Maybe it's uncovering, what they're trying to do in a political aspect. You have mentioned one thing. You have mentioned that, the law doesn't really work, especially for, anybody, like with Gandhi. I don't know if you're very familiar with Gandhi had to go through with his process, but what he realized is that no matter what he has done, even though he was a lawyer, he would always defend, his people. And no matter what court case he beat, another law would take its place. And that's what I've always told the Native Americans. It says, you don't write laws. And if you gave them a treaty that you written, they would throw it away. Instead, they'll give you the treaty in which you would always sign. So there's always subsections of subsections of subsections that always entrap people. That makes sense. So
100%, you're correct. I was looking at some stuff that was called Into the West last week, old stuff, right? And it was funny. They presented the treaties, right? The treaties weren't treaties; they were treats. And you can either A, go along with this written document to give up your rights in your land, or we'll just kill you. That was the treaties. They're under duress, and you can't even deny it. I mean, most of these agreements they created, that it's like the BNA Act. The BNA was created, by Queen Victoria in her era. She died in 1901, left no heirs, but their system continues because of fraud and deception. And I always try to educate people that Canada's not really a country; it's just a big business, and the business is here to harm us. They create whatever laws they want to protect their business contracts, their private membership contract for themselves. And they use fancy words and legalese to make it look like, it's sort of like, it was very prominent. I noticed with, I looked at the Charter of Rights and Freedoms many years ago, right? And I looked at the Charter and I said, well, Section 1 says it removes your rights and freedoms. Well, did I agree to that? No, we didn't. So we tried to educate people slowly over the years, and now a lot of people are starting to wake up and smell the coffee, which is a great thing. But one video was fantastic that you put out about a year ago, and it was a short video. It's about 3.5, 4 minutes long, and we watched that video, and I went, "This is perfect. This guy's got it figured out." He said, the same concentration camp they put the Indians on, the same concentration camps they're going to put the white people on, the colonization, right? And I said, he's got to figure it out. And that's where people have to come together and say, listen, This battle we're facing is globalization, but the globalists work at every single level. They work right in your city towns, your council members, anybody with sustainable development, and even UNDRIP. I mean, UNDRIP is deadly. And I always look at, the biggest thing is this. I always say to people, United Nations, the people that started World War One, World War Two, Vietnam, Korea, Bosnia, Croatia, Desert Storm, etc., are here to save us now. You have to give your head a shake, right? These people have to think about this logically. So when they always say, well, the United Nations, they created the Declaration of Human Rights. And I said, yeah, they did create that declaration. It's a declaration of war against your and I human rights. It tells you straight out in the declaration, they'll remove your rights to benefit their objectives. And we have UNDRIP, Universal Declaration for Indigenous People, coming out big time now. I watched it come out in the 1990s, but you and I had a discussion earlier. You talked about 1970s about UNDRIP. Do you want to discuss that?
Yeah, what people don't get about it is it's people are gonna have to look at it as, like World Wrestling Federation. I'm gonna say this. I mean, what happens is, it's entertainment. It's like, you have the bad guy and the good guy, and then later on, at the end of the day, they go and drink beer at the bar, right? That's exactly what UNDRIP is. They have, the good people and the bad people in politics. So when I say this, I say that it was probably developed way farther than we previously thought. And I'm going to go back probably in time to like the dirty 30s when they bring in the taxation. It was supposed to be temporarily only because of the fact that the stock market crashed, but they bring in taxes because they wanted, to enslave people in a taxation game. And then 1964 to 68, they were trying to develop this thing with what do you call World Economic Forum, but at that time it wasn't. There were just a lot of people coming together. And then this is why it might be very controversial what I'm saying. This is what John F. Kennedy was talking about. It wasn't what do you call the foreign threat of war and all these other people. They were talking about domesticated threats. Later on, I guess he got assassinated in 1969, if I'm not mistaken. But after that, 1970, they instilled what do you call the credit system. They wanted to go past Congress. 1972, it did go past Congress. The credit system is not what people think. It is a debt. And what I mean by debt, it's like a technology. Once we used to have the gold standard, and the gold standard was a certificate of gold, and that's what it was worth a long time ago. But after that, they switched it over and they made it into debt. So 1970, 1980, a truck would cost about $1,700 to $1,900. As time goes on, the credit system slowly grows and grows and grows and grows to a point where inflation is unbearable for the average family. When it used to be like, one parent would take off to work and the other parent would take, would what do you call, take care of the children. And we actually had moral values in our home. And what happened after a while, it crashed. Right now, this is exactly what we're seeing right now, where, inflation is killing the nuclear family. And now when the parent is not able to take care of the child, what happens? It starts to, Generation X, whatever, all these things. And now, it's not like it used to be in the 80s when we used to have like these alpha males and everything like that. Money and inflation will destroy the family, and not only just because of the aspect of money and freedoms. It starts to take away your rights. And now to the point where we had, like I'll tell you right now, I just think that people are going to have to look at the whole situation, not just one situation, but the whole situation of how UNDRIP is coming into play. When I say the trucker movement and the yellow vest movement and all these things, and you're talking about Tamara Litch, you're talking about all these people in a trucker convoy, and on top of that, George Soros, when it came down to the oil pipeline and everything like that, maybe it's all a facade, a mirage, because these guys are so smart that they knew exactly the time when inflation was going to kill everybody. Like, they're not here to save Canada. I'm going to be honest with you. They are not here to save Canada. They are here to bankrupt Canada, to usher in, a new social credit system, because it has to graduate. It has to graduate this, what do you call this credit system, to the point where everybody, what is that, 60% or over 50% are, can barely pay off their mortgages right now.
Yep.
And so to the point where everybody had enough, they control the money. When they control the money, they control your life and everything. What did they say? They said, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. Just like the reservation system. Like, this is what I call the white man reservation right now, when they're going to have the 15-minute districts, city districts. And that's the thing. And then on top of that, what did they also instill? They instilled, what do you call, the school systems here, where they're actually going to start taking care of your children. And 6 years old, 8 years old, they can have sex change or things like that. This is a new residential school 2.0. You cannot do nothing to stop your child from having those ideas where he wants to do. Like, they've taken away God, they take away every single thing. They put Pastafarians in school. They got transgenders in there. I'm not trying to go against I got to be careful. Well, I don't really care, but I got to be careful what I say, because they'll knock it off. But to the point where they are, anybody who owns the children owns the future. And that's exactly what they did with the Native Americans. They, we weren't allowed off the reservations till 1951, 1978, 79. We weren't allowed to study our culture. 1990, up until 1990, we were not allowed to speak our Cree language in the school. 1998, the last residential school closed. But now I look at every single thing. Everywhere down the line is exactly the same thing that they have done to the Native Americans. In kindergarten to grade 12 in 1986, all of us had to line up down the hallway in Big River Reservation, and we were forced to take the flu vaccination shot. And the parents had no say whatsoever. We had to take the flu vaccination shot, where one person died and 2 people got sick. So even when we asked these questions, why didn't other municipalities, whether it was Debden, Spiritwood, Shell Lake, Shellbrook, and all these other places, why didn't these schools, get the flu vaccination shot? It was only Native American reservations at the time. So now it's actually happening to you guys. And what's going to happen is they're going to force your child to take these shots, and that's what I don't know what else to say, but I'm just saying that it's.
Oh no, you said it well. I mean, it's just this battle that we're facing. It affects us all equally, and that's why it's important for us all to start looking at solutions. Now, the solution is all of us coming together. And a lot of people ask me, they ask me questions. So, how many people do we need? I said, well, 40 years ago, I said it was a tough battle, like educating people what was coming. 40 years ago was tough. 30, 20, 25, 10 years ago it was tough. And, in 2019, I seen a big spring of a lot of people starting to wake up again, starting to question what's going on. But we've had slow growth from 2019, 2021, and 22. It started to really pick up again. 2023 of January has been a huge amount of more people becoming more knowledgeable, questioning a lot more, and starting to organize. So I do see great advances in the learning curve in the last 6 months. The last 5 months has been a lot, but now we have to come out with the real power. The real power is all of us together. We are the true government. I don't care what anybody has to say. We are the government. These people, they have never worked for us. I mean, I look into it, the big picture. A lot of people think, a few of these MLAs and MPs are good people. No, they're not. They're not. Every single one of them has went along with every single criminal offense against us, indirectly or directly. I mean, this UNDRIP, we mentioned it to quite a few MPs, and a lot of them said they couldn't even talk about it. So here you have a member of parliament that can't even talk about UNDRIP. And I mean, these are critical things, and they don't want to step out of position because they don't want to be held liable. They don't want to be condemned in the House of Commons. It's their house, where we're outside freezing to death. And that's what's going to happen if we don't get our shit together. And my message has always been the same message: we are the true government. So the 12% that are awake now, that I'm really proud of these 12% that have stepped forward. They've really started to move forward in a good direction. But those 12% have to become the leaders or the organizers or the educators because we have a 45% of the population sitting there. 45%. What I mean by 45% is this. I look at mathematics. We have 3% that belong to the Bilderberg group or the parasite system, right? Those 3%. Then we have a certain percent of the population base, of maybe 30% that are sitting on that are part of the system. They don't want to ruin the system because they're either lawyers, part of the system, or judges, or the military, or their RCMP, or police force, or sheriffs, or in the law enforcement of the aspect of the corporation. Their livelihood depends on it. Most of them have been compromised over the years, so they don't want to step away from the system because they'll be held accountable for crime they've committed against all of us. So that 30%, I don't care about them. It's the 45% that I'm looking at to reach out to and talk to and express my views with them and see where they're sitting. And right now, those 45%, they're looking for solutions. They're looking for friendships to build something better so we can destroy their old system and create a new system. And I've always said it. We walk away from their system will become obsolete. Of course it will. But we have to educate the people that we can do a better job. And I think that, Adrien, you're a businessman. You've got skills. Everybody out there is a businessman or business ladies or what do you want to call it, have skills. We can do a better job than a bunch of criminals. And that's what I want to get across to people.
I'm listening to what you're saying, and I might be a little bit controversial when I say this, but this man-made law system that we have here is very corrupt. I think we could all, agree with that. But it even goes deeper than that. We're talking about the treaties prior to when we're talking about UNDRIP. There was a 60-40 split when it came down to Canada and the Pilgrims at the time. And that's understandable because it was a corporation, and you're right about that. And it goes down to signing on to your birth certificate where you call the queen at that time the queen mom, and it goes down to the line of every single thing. But even then, that's its own law and its own right and whatnot. But as we're going along and we look at the whole aspect of what's really going on in Canada, I don't really think that there was a real prime minister that actually stuck up for us other than Ralph Klein, for one, because he was against everything and he was the only one that bring the surplus in Alberta. But when you really look at everything down the line between what was going on since 2015, let's just even go farther than that. 2008, Stephen Harper, he bought himself an oil rig. I think it was in the Pacific. He traded it with the Chinese so the Chinese could get water at the time. So that, I don't know if you guys remember that. 2003, George W. Bush signed the Amero deal between Canada, United States, and Mexico in case, the greenback falls, and then you have $1 rules them all kind of thing, right? But then we go really into the aspect of what these people were trying to do. We always knew that there was going to be one world, organization, one world government, one world power. That's the main thing that every single leader has always been talking about. Now we're going to go around to UNDRIP. 2015. This is what because Stephen Harper told the Native Americans we had to have a Transparency Act. I don't know if you guys remember that, but the Transparency Act bring into the aspect of corruption, and they found that more than 60% of all Native Americans were in the red at that time. In 2015, Justin Trudeau made a deal with all the Native Americans, the leaders at the time, FSI and AFN, all the way down 642 bands. He said, if I get put in, you can take out the Transparency Act. So that's what happened. He got thrown into the aspect of pushing away the Transparency Act. Remember, we get 12 to $19 billion a year from the Canadian government to sustain our reservation systems. 1/3 of that goes into Indian Affairs as administration costs. So what would that be? That would be $7 billion. Let's just say $5 billion to $7 billion a year goes to the Indian Affairs, Northern Affairs Canada. Just so happens that they're all, and I hate to say it in such a way, they're all governmental people, white people. What's his name? Paul Martin at the time, he made $3 million in 1 year working underneath a contract for helping the Native Americans. So $3 million, he would never make that in 10 years. See, this is what they don't want to do. They don't want to destroy the Indian Act because it's an offshore bank account. You see?
Yep.
Instead of having to put your bank account across somewhere else, they'll take it there. So this is what they want to do. They want to make money off of that with the administration costs. Now you put it down to tribal councils. They make their other percentage. AFN, FSIN, they make their own percentage. And then it goes to the bands. By the time it gets dispersed to every man, woman, and child, less than 34 to $38 for every man, woman, and child on the when it comes down. That's how it gets destroyed all the way down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now that's just the corruption of what was going on there. Why they keep Native Americans in poverty and everything. Now you got to remember that the Indian Act also bring in the residential schools. The Indian Act also bring in the reservations, which are concentration camps. The Indian Act also created the chief and council systems, and and at the same time too, it has gave us governance as to a chief and council system. So that wasn't that was not our traditional way. It used to be hereditary chiefs. So I know I'm going all over the place, but I wanted to explain these things.
You're going good.
Yeah, I wanted to explain these things so that way people understand why there's poverty and everything in the reservation. It is a design system. It is a design system of oppression. It is a design system of what do you call it? Corruption as well too. So now we go back to the Transparency Act. Because the Transparency Act was existent at the time, we had to kind of follow a moral code of ethics when it comes down to business relationships in Canada. But now, since Justin Trudeau came, he says you don't have to play that game anymore. To find out that there was a bigger issue that he was trying to look at, how UNDRIP came, and how it got so much power over the last year, which people don't understand. I'll go back to the Yellow Jacket movement. The Yellow Jacket movement was there. It was with Tamara Litch and a lot of people, Peter Downey. Then they started going with this Wexit thingamajiggy. I don't know if you guys remember Wexit.
Oh yeah.
But they needed to centralize their their governance and their votes, because everybody started realizing that after they killed the Trans Mountain pipeline from No DAPL to Trans Mountain pipeline. How they killed that? Like Justin Trudeau killed it right away. Bought it $4 billion. He killed it. And he made certain that the pipeline didn't go from BC over, because he made a bear sanctuary because of George Soros and what do you call at that time they had these environmentalists that were paid by George Soros. So it was killed for a reason. So when they killed that, Canada started getting all crazy. Alberta, the backbone of the economy, started going crazy. The voters started going up and down. They made the Yellow Jacket movement, and all of a sudden, after that, Wexit started coming through because of everything. Now they need some key players. This is why I think, and I'm not going against the truckers, but the trucker convoy, they had key players in there that I think that were probably paid, because this is why they needed, heroes for Canada. They needed heroes for, for the people that were, pissed off with what was going on in Canada. So what happened was, as soon as they got the trucker convoy went to Ottawa, remember 1982 when they instilled the Emergency Act? They needed that to happen. It would look like a plan. From my point of view, the reason why they needed this thing to happen is because in order for the Emergency Act to happen, they needed something so crazy, and that craziness came to Ottawa. Why did they want the Emergency Act? So that way they can start changing the Constitution underneath the Emergency Act to start changing laws. And by changing those laws, Bill C-11, Bill C-36, all these things, the whole 9 bits, you know what happened after that? It gave more traction to UNDRIP. That's what people don't understand. They think that UNDRIP is for Native Americans and to have control of their land. No, there's 3 sections. There's there's 3 sections of law. Underneath the UNDRIP law, it's so open-ended that once you give it to United Nations, they can freaking take this land if they wanted to. And the more we looked at, the people that were involved with the trucker convoy, I'm not trying to put anybody underneath the bus, but there was so much collusion with NDP, you see, and that's the thing. You got all these bands across the, all the way across Canada. All of them signed into UNDRIP. Now they have these 50 First Nations that they're going to be handpicking up in BC, underneath what do you call NDP. That's something else. And if they sign that off, they are in control of 203 bands and all these lands across Canada on BC area. Now you're looking at Danielle Smith. You're looking at all these people that are going through that are trying to fight the cause. You name it. I don't care what anybody says. I think the whole damn thing is all just a mirage. Everybody thinks that you guys, your vote really doesn't matter. No, these guys know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly who the key players are. Christina Anderson didn't come here as a savior because she's a part of the World Economic Forum. You guys needed a voice. She became your guys' hero, but at the same time, too, what if she was a bad person, trying to be that hero because you guys needed somebody because somebody was against Justin Trudeau because everybody had Justin Trudeau. What if they shook hands and she became that bad person and all of a sudden what we already kind of figured out is that she's also, kind of colluding with the NDP at the very moment. Remember, there's three governments that are on top right now. Justin Trudeau, everybody hates him. NDP made the backdoor deal with Justin Trudeau. And at the same time, too, now you have the Conservative Party who does not want to talk with Christina Anderson. Think about those people, because at the end of the day, we already kind of knew that Rachel Notley was indirectly involved with the trucker convoy. So, you really think about these things deep down the line when you're really in depth of things. This might be the greatest freaking, manipulation that you guys don't even know. Once we lose our treaties, once we sign onto the dotted line with UNDRIP, the natural law aspect, we're talking about natural law. We're not talking about who has what, we have this or that. If we lose our treaty, you guys lose your rights and you guys just gain a reservation. And they're playing this thing, whether it's racism, you name it down the line, manipulation down the line. You guys don't understand that it's just a vote. You think you have a vote? No, these guys are all paid. That's what I wanted to say. Like, you guys have to
Oh yeah,
understand
well,
that.
no, I'll tell you right now, Adrian. I've been around the game for many years. I my during the 1980s, I was well aware what was going on, and during the 1990s, I went quite regular with quite a few videos. Well, not videos back then, but 2000, I started doing quite a bit of videos through Anonymous until Anonymous got hijacked by the globalists. Oh yeah, our team have watched when Anderson came over. I watched her mechanism with Brexit, right? Brexit with Nigel Farage, which is another big scam, right? They had Trump involved in that one with Nigel Farage. And I knew Trump was a parasite right from the very beginning. He was, there's just another decoy to make it look good, give people false hope, hopium. And then Trump gets in there and people, right on, someone's coming to save us. No one's coming to save you, buddy. These people work hand in hand and they use illusions. They're tricksters. They give you what you want to hear. But at the same time, they're stealing the food from your children. They're all involved. It doesn't matter if it's the NDP, the Liberals, the Cons, or the Green Party. They're all working in sync. Every single one of them. Michelle Rempel, in Calgary, I went and confronted her about the UN Agenda 21 and UNDRIP and many other things. She just ran away, put her tail between her legs, doesn't want to answer the questions because they know that they're all involved in this. You mentioned Harper. That was the SPP agreement, Security Prosperity Partnership. I was there during those agreements in Montebello, Quebec back then. And Harper was pushing that agenda. And there was a North American Union, NAU, with George Bush, and it never ended. And there was quite a few people who were bringing the information forward, but we weren't getting the voice out there because, the media is controlled. And everybody goes, Justin Trudeau, he bought CBC, he gave him $1 billion. I said, are you serious? CBC, Canadian Bullshit Corporation, I call it. It's owned by them. They didn't give him one. Harper did the same thing. Harper gave him lots of money to promote whatever they want. They own these newspapers, and they're going to sell you exactly what they want you to hear. And, the convoy was 100% created by the globalists. The Yellow Vest movement was created by George Soros. And everybody jumps on these Yellow Vest movements. I remember Occupy No More when it came. That was all George Soros. Idle No More came. I watched that when Idle No More came. I watched the mechanism, how they were switching people's points of view, pushing towards UNDRIP. And I studied UNDRIP for many years. And the biggest thing that I during my investigation, reading what they're doing, I could never find out what indigenous people means. There's no definition of indigenous. And then you look at it, well, everybody knows what indigenous means. No, we all think what we think what indigenous means. But under the UN Charter, there's no definition of indigenous people. So when there's no definition, does that mean monster? Does it mean aboriginal? Because under their dictionary, under the Indian Act, aboriginal means abnormal, and abnormal are considered monsters, and monsters cannot own land. So unless we have a clear indication, we have to create our own definition what indigenous means. Hope that makes sense.
That really does. You know, when I was talking about these things, like about 4 months ago or 3 months ago, I told people, you you have to remember your treaty. It's underneath the North American Indian, and that's what I told them, is because we're not a definition, we're an identity, and you always have to remember that identity it trumps a definition, because remember, English is the bastardized language. It comes from so many definitions, and you'll find one definition, a Greek terminology or a Latin terminology of certain things. You have to have an identity with the word. And if you don't, and if you claim yourself indigenous or aboriginal or First Nations, that's where it gets really tricky, because what do you call indigenous is what you are, because you're born that. But Canadians is that actually points to our identity, and that's what UNDRIP it's a very well written documentation to fuck us over. So you must, if I swear, that's what I'm saying, because it is what it is. Like I've always said, like, Stephen Harper, at least he would tell you the truth, and you had time to lube up your butt before he screws you over. But Justin Trudeau, on the other hand, he'll give you a back massage. By the time you turn over, he'll stick it in dry. And that's the thing that people don't understand, is that he's a puppet. And that's the thing that people don't know. And I think people do know that. I mean, he hasn't once ever argued the fact in Parliament about every single thing that they've been talking about. He's a well-groomed idiot, if you must know. But I mean, he's very smart at what he says. He'll always play the narrative of the liberalized aspect, because that's just what it is. And so when we're talking about identity, when we're talking about Aboriginal or Indigenous, that itself is nothing but identity politics. The same with birthers. Now we have to say birthing people, not women anymore. And it becomes that. And that's why I was saying, like, you have to watch everybody's language. You have to watch what they're trying to do. They're separating everybody. It's the same kind of identity and the same kind of spirit of racism, but in different terms. See, the word racism should never exist. I believe it's more of a, what do you call, what is that? It's to divide people. It's ignorance, really.
Ignorance.
It's ignorance, really. But at the same time, too, identity politics is also ignorance.
Yeah.
And the more they feed it onto people, the more they buy into it because of the media. Remember, they own the media. At the same time, too, he who owns the children, there's going to be more ignorance down the line because of it. And that's why I'm saying, that's why they're trying to separate the children right now from the 15-minute districts to the school, the educational system. That's exactly what they did to us. I mean, this is the reason why I don't speak my Cree language, is because I got it beat out of me, and it was at the same time too, it was indoctrination. And then they say, like, how to kill the Indian and the Indian. That's exactly what they almost did to me. Now, what are they going to do to the white populace or Canadians in general when they put them in school? They're going to kill the Canadian out of the Canadian. That's what they're going to do. And people don't understand it. I'm talking about, the culture of Canada, not the corporation of Canada, because they have a different agenda, right?
No.
But these are the things that people have to understand. It's all a mind manipulation. That's all it really is. And I don't know. I mean, hopefully that's clear enough, but that's what I wanted to say to people.
You did a good job. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I look at the Italians. I remember when the Italians came over, and the Ducabors. And I watched them. I remember when they isolated by themselves up by Kootenay Lake by Crescent there, because I'm from Port Hill back then, right? And So it was only 20 miles, and the Doukhobors settled in there because they weren't assimilating, because they spoke a different language. But eventually they did assimilate to a certain degree. But every single person that migrated here from different areas around the world was under the same threat from the globalization. And that's the biggest thing. We all are equally being destroyed by this globalization, and this Indian Act enslaves us all. And they created a trust, and this trust is their trust. It's nothing to do with us. So it doesn't matter if you're in the First Nations, when you mentioned it very perfect. The First Nations was created by the globalists. India was created by the globalists. And this is what, back in 1922 is the Native Sons and Daughters, where they positioned that the people living in British Columbia and surrounding area were born here, so they're native daughters and sons to the land. But the government didn't want that. The corporations didn't want that. They don't want people talking to each other, treating each other with equality or fairness or working together. They want to create this racism, the divisions, and all these minorities. Where we actually, if we all come together tomorrow morning and said, no, we've had enough of this system. We're going to create a system where we're all treated fairly and equally, and we're going to look after the resources properly, we would all win. But as long as they can keep us voting, the left and right paradigm, ridiculous stupidity, or dividing us with, religions. Religions have been a big fault to us too. All these different religions. To myself personally, be spiritual, bring no harm, and we could all get along very quickly and remove this evil segment over here. I'm telling you. And that's my mission. And I've been educating that for years. And I think we have some good forward motion here in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks. The more tyranny that the corporation puts on the people, or the globalists put on the people, the more we're going to start to unify with intellectual, intelligent people to work on solution-based system. And the solution is us. And that's what I want people to realize. We are the government. Everything they create is false. Natural law is the number one law. It's the only law out there. Natural law supersedes all their fictional man-made laws. And once people comprehend that and see the benefits of this, it's going to be a snowball, effect. And we're going to grow in numbers of critical thinkers that want to build a future. That's my hope and my ambition for the next 3 months.
We started, I guess I could say I started a little movement here on TikTok and Facebook and Twitter, to the point where media was trying to message me. And then now they don't even want to they're trying to take away my videos. And, the thing is, we look at World War II, we look at the agenda of everything. And I know it's going to make a lot of people angry, because it made a lot of people angry on their Maverick News channel and everything like that. What people don't understand is that who are the elite? That's what we have to understand. Who are the elite prior to World War I, World War II? Let's put that out there, because people are so hypnotized in the aspect of World War II that there was atrocities. I totally understand. There's always going to be atrocities. But when we sat there and I asked a lot of these truckers and a lot of politicians, what are your solutions? It's either we play the man-made game and we try to understand, the economy. But the economy is already owned by the credit system, and the credit system is owned by the big banks. The big banks are owned by a certain amount of people. Let's put that out there. And those certain amount of people were directly and indirectly involved with World War II. And why the media is so, powerful today, and you cannot go against the media. And if you go against a certain amount of people, a certain group of people, let's just say that, what happens is you become anti-Semitic. See, that is their shield. The biggest shield that they have, no matter what, whether it's the big banks or whatnot, is always the German swastika. Okay. And I'm not trying to go against the atrocities. I'm just talking about facts, about symbolism, the facts of who they are, why they own 83 or 85% of the media right now when it comes down to Fox, CNN, Hollywood, the whole nine bits, the banking systems. These are the people that define our future right now. And these are the same people that instilled the credit system. So I'm going to go way down there. And when we look at these atrocities and everything that they're hiding behind, because once we start talking about them, guess what happened to Kanye West when he started asking questions? he became anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitism came to his doorway, and that's why they're trying to cancel him. You see, he lost what I don't know how many billions. I think $4 billion after one day from Adidas and all these other things when they started talking about things. The point I'm trying to say is this: when I started this movement, we looked at our history. History is very, very important with Native Americans and people around the world. And I've always said we always have to battle the other flag. The only reason why is because it cuts people's tongues off. Whenever you try to talk about it, it cuts your tongue off. And the media, whenever they hear something like that, and all these, and I'll say it this way: all these celebrities are owned underneath a number now. They're not underneath a business venture no more. When you look at the media, it's all a numbered eyes group underneath a big umbrella, and that's probably the World Economic Forum. You see? So I bring out my flag, and it just so happened to be a Native American swastika. And I've always said this because my history, our history, predates the German war, the European war. And if people must understand, 1951, we weren't even allowed to leave the reservations till 1951. That was 3 years after the war. In 1978, like I said, we weren't even allowed to our customs and cultures because it was illegal. In 1990, my tongue has been chopped off with my Cree language. 1998, like I said, the residential school. The last thing I want anybody to do is take away the rightful symbol that we actually have, and people are probably really confused about this. But here's the thing: look at the North Star in the middle of the night, and then you look at the Big Dipper. Spring, summer, fall, winter, it goes 90 degrees. You put it on the ground. That is the Native American swastika, which happens to be the 7 stars that actually are the grandfathers or the grandmothers that actually represent the Thunderbird. And that is the Thunderbird flag for us. And that was always been the Hopis, the Navajos, the Crees, the Blackfoot, all the way down. We knew that symbol meant something. And it also means something to other nations across the world. And if I put that up there, and people start saying that I'm anti-Semitic or against the Jews, against the Germans and everything, I don't care if that's the truth or not, because if we normalize that, that's what my mission is. If I normalize our Native American swastika to history, to actually what it really means, not the atrocities of one stupid asshole, I'm just saying, if we look at the aspect of what it really means, guess what it really does to all those people in the media? It cuts them out. It's not, there's no more shield there that they can use against us.
Yep, I
You know
agree.
what I mean?
We had a Tony Hall was in last week or 2 weeks ago, one of our presentations. He's a university professor from Lethbridge, and another one of the professors was Monica, also a university professor, and she wrote a book called "Mummy, I Got It All Wrong," and it was about the Holocaust. And she got condemned. She lives in Alberta. She no longer lives in Alberta anymore because of the scrutiny she took. But she got 8 months in jail. And Tony, his opinion was kind of strange. Why can't we question or research the Holocaust? So they've got it's against the law for 18 countries to even question, to bring it up in any meetings, to talk about it. So, I've researched the Holocaust for years, and the Holocaust is a 100% fraud, right? And there was a huge Holocaust. 25 million people were murdered in World War I. 75 million people were murdered in World War II. And about 60 to 80 million were murdered in the Bolshevik Jew Revolution under Trotsky and Lenin, let alone the 350 million that were murdered in the continent of Africa. And then we can get into the continent of North America, 60, 80 million that were murdered. And it's the same globalists that want you to believe in this fiction. Hitler, Stalin, Eisenhower, Roosevelt, Churchill were all Zionists, and you can't even deny that. They also belong to secret societies too. I mean, I don't have no problem talking about this stuff because I think the more knowledge, and I'm not here to hurt people's feelings. I'm here to make people think, to wake their minds up. So the swastika was actually something very important. They twisted the swastika to make it evil because they want you to not understand where you came from. The Irish settlers, the boys that were hauled over here, 2 million of them, 2 million from the age of 3 to 5 years old were dropped off from Pennsylvania all the way up in the 13 colonies back then, dropped off as slaves. There was 100,000 British children that were brought over and dropped off into Halifax. These were babies, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old for slave trade. It's the same enemy that's doing this all, like World War I, World War II, and you mentioned it, our banker wars. And the bankers they want you to be anti-Semitic. They don't want you talking about it. Everybody gets frustrated, right? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Now we're actually talking about the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And and I'll go as far as to say that there was three things that were promised, on the sea with Roosevelt and Churchill.
Yeah.
That was reprimands. After if they helped them, they'll give them the Iron Curtain, and that was reprimands. And then at the same time too, that the United States made the first mistake, World War I. The second thing that they said, now it is World War II. They said we want to be at the seat of power, and that's when it came. League of Nations turned into the United Nations because the United States sat on the seat of power with the United Nations now. Yeah. After that, and now the third thing that they told, and they weren't going to mention it, is that if they win the war, guess what's going to happen? Well, they knew, they're all part of the game, that that Israel will go back to the Jews, you see? So that's exactly what happened. And then on top of that, now they had, after 2,000 years, after killing, the death of Yahshua, this has actually happened. You know what I mean? It's become like, biblical to the point where now they got that state rebuilt again. And now Israel's a part of the United States. You got all these people, and nobody wants to connect the dots with history. That's what I've always said. History is very important. 1970, like I said, who owns the banking systems? These are the people that are destroying the world right now. It's only like a handful of people that actually run the world. And now we're talking about, the British Commonwealth. They're a part of that system because that's where they use the banking system as well too, and everything. And people have this belief that, oh, we're just paying off World War I. We're just finally paying off World War II. Debt itself is fictitious.
Yeah.
They're just saying that so they can control everybody. Money right now is bullshit. And people say like, okay, I have $100,000 in my bank account. Really? Do you own that money? No, you don't, because it says the property of Canada. It's the property of Canada. Nobody owns money. It's illegal to even burn money. That's what people have to understand. The only thing that we own is inside of us right here. And that is the truth. That is the truth. That is the soul. That is the mind. That is everything. That's what Jesus was trying to say. I'm a Christian in the aspect of that. I'm not a Christian as for religion. I just believe in smart people. But what I'm trying to say is this, like, this whole facade that we're living in, yeah, the credit system gave us really good technologies. It gave us technology in the computer system because production and everything. The wars gave us, a better plane system and everything like that. But at the end of the day, there's still control. We are the ones that are getting controlled, and and then it goes down to UNDRIP. People have to understand that this was always a plan. This was always a plan to take away your country because when they started to colonize the United States and Canada, there used to be the land claims, and at the same time too, when you came across as Irish settlers or whatnot, they gave you free land as long as you could develop in 5 years. It just so happened in the the dirty 30s, when you had all these loans that they crashed the whole system. Now they owned your land. You had to pay taxes on your land. See, it's the same freaking system that they fought against with the United States during United States versus the British Commonwealth at the time when the United States had independence. It's the same freaking shit. They just taking it over. I mean, and I don't know what else to say, but I know one thing for certain. Everybody had culture. It's the same thing that they've been using for 1,000 years. I mean, you guys used to have, you guys used to be nomadic just like us. You guys used to have sweats just like us. You guys used to have, they called you, I don't know, whatever they called you. But I know that you guys had tribes. You had Germania a long time ago. It was a part of the British Commonwealth and everything like that. Germania before Roman conquest. And that's what the same the same events and every single thing that they did to colonize you guys over the years with countries and kings and countries and kings and governmental systems, it came to the point where you guys lost a part of your culture. And that's what I've always said. Everybody really does have culture, and the culture has a lot to do with natural law. Natural law has a lot to do with the environment that you're at. And the environment that you're at will always teach you about spirituality, and that's the problem that we have. We don't have communication anymore, and that's why I'm looking at this world right now in Canada and everything like that. Are we that are we that manipulated to believe that we actually have rights? No, we have rights, and we don't have rights. It's all these laws are just slowly taking us away, and to the point where we're just become, I don't know, lonely. Ask the average person, how are you doing? If they really told you how they're doing, they lost a sense of God, spirit, creator. I don't know. But in the depths of their heart, it's about spirituality that they lost.
They've
So I don't
lost
know. That's
they've lost their dreams.
true.
They've lost their dreams, and that's the biggest thing. And I see it on a regular basis, and it's where this system is such a evil system right now. In the last 4 years, last 2 years, last year has been so evil. A lot of people are losing their dreams. They're losing their ambition. But there's a lot of people out there that are fighting back, that are getting educated. And I think the more we push forward in the next 3 months, I watched Serena do a video yesterday with Ron Vallant. It was a heated discussion back and forth, but that's okay. We need debates. We need debates to work out our minor differences so we can come together on a conclusion. What do we want? Well, we want their system gone. And I think as we progress in the next 3 weeks, I feel that it's going to be very important. Like your video will get lots of views, and we'll push it out there again. We know they're taking down videos. We know the social media sites suck, but once we start formulating plans in each of these local areas, and I want all these groups to seriously think about what they're doing in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, to stop what they're doing and take a day or 2 days off and concentrate on what do we want to achieve in 1 month. All of us. Do we want to stop the system from harming us? Yeah, that's our objectives. We got to sit down and create plans, concrete plans, educational at each local area. And I know for a fact, with all the new bylaws coming in and all this bullshit coming in, this has got a lot of people thinking. So these city mayors or city council members, they work for you. Supposedly, they don't. You're going to have to remove them, put in real good people to work there, and not work there that actually get committed with the community. Can we do it? We have no choice but to do it. But as we progress, I think it's very important that we move forward. Yeah.
I think people are going to have to really look at their grandchildren, look at exactly what kind of world they want to live in. And I'll say it the way I have to say it. This man-made law is against you. Every single thing in the in Canada, United States, Australia, United Kingdom, all the way down the line, Africa and everything. You guys just have to open your eyes and look at what really, I mean, we have good technology. We've got vehicles and everything. That's totally fine. I mean, some people are there, but you know what? The bank system with the inflation is going to kill you in the very end. And you guys have to really look at your grandchildren, where you want them to be, because I tell you right now, this system here is totally against you, and it was developed and made by those bank systems and a couple of people. They knew exactly what they were doing. This is probably the reason why they killed John F. Kennedy, because he knew. He is probably the last president that you guys really had in the United States. So I was putting that out there so people understand. So.
Oh, it's awesome. That's good. So we'll have you back again. We've got a few people popping. I'm going to kill the recording here, but thanks, Adrien. It was awesome. Some good points, and like I said, you got some good ideas, and you got, you're not afraid to speak, which is good, and you speak from the heart, and that's what people want. And the facts are facts. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. It is greatly appreciated. Finally, we kind of connected after a couple of days of
Yeah,
time. So, but
it's all good.
there you go.